Hello, I'm Jake Woodrow, civic journalist at Tello Community Television. In this episode of Strait Talk, we focus on a presentation made about a proposed multi-purpose facility that took place at Richmond Municipal Council's Committee of the Whole session on February 11th in Arichat. After the meeting, I spoke with Warden Lois Landry and Deputy Warden Brent Sampson.
So I'm an architect from A49 in Halifax. About a little, I guess close to 2 years ago now, we began this multi-use center feasibility study with the municipality, and we also employed a group of experts to assist us in this pursuit. I'm an architect, so I did the design of the actual facility. We employed WSP, both their planning and their environmental sciences, I guess, or environmental engineering side of things to do both the engagement portion of the work and the energy modeling portion of the work. And then we also employed New Stadia Recreation, who's a operations specialist. Basically, they operate facilities that are quite a lot like this facility that we designed. And then we also employed Altus Limited, who's a cost consultant, to do the overall hard costs for the building, so what the building would cost to build. So this is just an overview of the report. That it actually is quite a lot longer than this, but these are just the highlights from the report that I'm going to walk you through right now. So I'll begin doing that. So just as an introduction, what we did was a needs assessment portion, which would be phase one, and then phase two was the concept design, and then the business and operational plan. The needs assessment, there was a variety of engagement meetings we did with the council, and then we did some Mi'kmaq community outreach, staff interviews, and some stakeholder meetings. I did a walkthrough of all the facilities in the area. It was interesting. There's a variety of different community centers and gymnasiums, schools that I went to. And then from the engagement sessions, we put together a what we heard document, and then also a needs assessment with recommendations associated with that needs assessment. Basically, figuring out what programs would be incorporated into the project, and then also. And then from there, and then also we looked at different sites from around the area and evaluated strengths and weaknesses of those sites, trying to find a good place to put the facility. And then from there, we took the information that we gained and developed a functional program and designed a really high-level design for the different we basically designed a building around the needs assessment and the what we heard document. And then from there, we got a Class D cost estimate done. We did an energy model to see what the best what the best mechanical operations, what kind of mechanical systems we should use to heat and cool the building, and then we did the operations costs. So how much it would cost to run the building over, I guess, a 30-year period. And then afterwards, we came back after the community saw the design, and we had another engagement session that evaluated that design, and we heard what you guys thought of it. So this is an outline of what we heard during the first engagement process. So it was basically just information gathering. We had 3 open houses and an online survey as well that we went through. The summary of this is kind of a summary of the key themes that we heard from that online survey and also all those engagement sessions. The first was to be complementary to the area, so not promote any programs that would compete with businesses that are already entrenched in the area. For example, you'll see as we go forward, there was the thought of possibly putting a weight training facility within the facility, but We understand after our review of the community and the needs assessment that there already is a weight training gym in the community that is not at capacity, so we left that out of the program. There was a priority to have a central location within the community. It's a large, geographically, it's quite a large place, and we wanted to make sure that the building would be located central to the area geographically. There was the optionality for space-intensive uses, so that being basically trying to provide as many multi-use functional spaces as we possibly could for the facility, so that many different programs could be run within it, and then also inclusivity to everyone in a universal design sense, to try and promote participation across all age groups, and allowing to kind of provide programming for the community that currently it lacks. So from the community survey, we had a really good response. This is basically a sheet that breaks down what we heard from our engagement sessions, kind of a summary of the different programs that were promoted or were noted as needed within the community for the facility. So from that, we took that information, and then we designed a program based on the information that we gathered from those engagement sessions. But first, we had a look at the overall the overall municipality, and had a look at different places within the facility or the municipality that would be good for putting this facility. It was a difficult exercise because there really wasn't a lot of areas that the municipality currently owns. Whiteside Road was the only area that was currently owned by the municipality, but we did look at 4 different sites geographically, and each one kind of in one location within the community, but the one that was the most central was the one that scored highest, which is actually adjacent to the current arena. So basically, from the site evaluation matrix, the centrality of the location had the highest, was given the highest weighting, and in the end, the most central location was adjacent to the current arena, so that was the one that was the most successful.
So it looks like the site that's the most suitable is the site which would be behind the current arena on Whiteside Road.
It would actually be like adjacent, and so it would be like the corner of the arena closest to the intersection that's right, the property line for one PID, and the next PID over. So it would be just over and up a little bit, and the up is because they would want to have parking in the front. So if you build the parking at that point, so that's the PID. There are a couple of other places that they looked at, and it wasn't captured in the meeting, this council meeting, but we had a meeting before that. And Councillor Mumbercat raised the issue about, look, one thing you didn't factor into your metrics, like your rating system. So it's super, super small print, but basically what they did was they said, here are 4 places, and I believe the one adjacent to might be the only one we actually own, but regardless, here are 4 places and what numeric value would you give? It's like a rating, so you get 3 points if you're the highest, right? That kind of thing. And so the one next to the current arena has 51 points. But one thing that kind of came up is those numbers might change if you change the metrics. So if you change what you're rating, and so Councillor Membercat flagged, for example, closer to amenities. So that is one thing to consider. There are certainly more amenities in St. Peter's than there are in Loosedale. There's no doubt about that. I've certainly talked to people who have said, if I have to come off of Isle Madame or leave Loosedale and I get to exit 46, I'm going to Port Hawkesbury and not St. Peter's. So there are pros and cons even to that. And so, that is a conversation for us to have, I think, a little more organically than 3, 2, 1. So there's still much to discuss on that front.
We're getting into concept design drawings, which is what I'm actually quite knowledgeable about, and this is what I do for a living. So just to give you an overall idea of what the building ended up looking like, taking the what we heard document and the needs assessment, making a program, and then basically building a design around that program. So this is an idea of the site plan. You can see the existing arena right adjacent to the multi-use building. Very high level. This is sort of a hypothetical location, and if it was to be on the site, this is how it would could be located. So on the first level, gymnasium gestures out towards the front of the building, with views into the gymnasium from when you enter. There's a large change room at the rear of the gymnasium, universal, so that each one of these is an enclosed changing facility so that anybody can use them. 2 universal washrooms that could incorporate a shower if necessary. Large storage room off the gymnasium as well. There's a large lobby space that has clerestory windows at the up high to bring light deep into the building. Kind of thinking that this is sort of the living room for the community. There's a concession for food service that could be used for monetary, to basically gain some revenue for the facility. Also an open office space located here, also for revenue purposes. They could be rented out to a business or possibly for single-use rentals if people working from home wanted to kind of get out of their house and go to an open office work environment. There's a multi-use performance space that has a dividable wall so that this space could function as two different spaces, or it could be opened up and become one large performance space with the idea of a stage, a removable stage that could be stored in these storage areas. There's a large NHL-sized ice pad, 6 change rooms. There's a change room located at the front, an extra one for figure skating, and then officials changing, and then obviously the support spaces for the arena. That's the first floor. On the second floor, there's a walking track, 2 large kind of, one's titled the hospitality room, and then an executive boardroom. This also can be split off with the operable wall. The hospitality room has a kitchenette, just in case there's a banquet or something like that where there's food service necessary. There could be a fridge located there as well. And then obviously the walking track. The walking track's nice because it's got some views down into the lobby space, and then windows to look into the parking lot in front. This is what it looks like in 3D. Kind of not the most exciting images, but luckily we've got renderings to look at. Just kind of giving me an idea of what the building looks like as far as massing goes. And then that's what it would look like. Obviously very high level, but giving an idea of what this could be. Just as far as operations goes, very high level. So basically, to sum this up, the building will not, there are revenue sources, ice rentals, gymnasium rentals, multi-use room rentals, food and beverage, et cetera, et cetera. However, the building will not break even. Just overall metrics over here, it stands to lose between $535,000 and $735,000 per year, which is comparable basically to what Port Hawkesbury's multi-use center currently is losing. So it would be a very similar kind of idea. That being said, there's lots of intangible benefits that come from it. There's community impact, increased active lifestyle, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of like you'll gain a bunch, but there will be this economic loss. The economic impact assessment, basically to summarize, there's job creation that will happen because of this. 200 to 250 temporary jobs will be created because of this. And then over 30 years, just because of sport tourism, et cetera, you do have the capacity to make up to, I think, $15.7 million over that 30-year period. So there will be benefits definitely from doing this.
First off, there's no facility that makes money. This is a service you provide to people. So, wellness is something that we don't pay money when we go to the Civic Center and walk around the track, and yet it costs money for that to be opened. So it is a service that you provide. So we are already losing money at the arena in Loosedale, and it's not even apples and oranges, because how much money are we losing every time we put on chair yoga somewhere? Like, are we bringing in as much as we're paying in terms of the rental fees and the fees to instructors and insurance and all those things? So if you add up all those losses, that's how you compare apples to apples in this situation. The other thing I will say is that I think they're basing it on current ice time or ice fees, which I get we want to use that as a starting point, but if we raised that slightly, because we would be offering ice time in a brand new facility, that would increase our revenue without increasing our expenses. And also, I frankly thought the price per hour for gymnasium use is extremely low. So there's no savings there, or there'd be an opportunity to revisit that. So yeah, those dollars are a concern, but we would always be looking at ways to recoup that. And there's no facility that's making money per se.
To build the building, we're looking at $43 million, $43 million, a little over that. So it's around $588 a square foot, which is what we're seeing across the board nationally for a building such as this. So that's the cost estimate. And then we did energy report. WSP, the energy modeler, basically he created a standard model based on just energy code, just meeting the energy code. And then we created two other models to compare. Variant 1 used a heat recovery system that used fossil fuels, and variant 2 was completely electric. And WSP suggests using the electric version because it will both cost less, and in the end there'll be less pollutants, and in the end we're future-proofing because that's the way Nova Scotia is moving.
I wasn't surprised that it was a high number because it's based on price per square foot. I think every time I go to the grocery store and I see the price of butter, I'm surprised at just the dramatic change in costs for every single thing compared to 2018, 2019. So on the one hand, I'm surprised every day by how much more rent costs and food and items like that. So to see, a dramatic increase in price per square foot from 2019 in the report about the Arena of the Days assessment. It talked about $150 a square foot. Now we're up to 588. So, it is a staggering thing, but it's consistent with what we've seen in every other part. I think it's interesting to me, because you and I kind of have been talking about the multi-use facility feasibility study for a while. I think it's interesting because I think people are, it's an emotional topic whenever you talk about something that might add to our expenses, so property taxes and all of that. But I think what's important is that previous council said, look, we know we have an arena that is 50 years old. And this report said, the lifespan of an arena tends to be 30 years. So, we've gotten our money's worth from the Richmond Arena. So I think when we look at, what are our options moving forward? How much money do we spend to have an old arena? What are our options around all those things, where it could be located? I think this has been important work because it drives the conversation from here on out. So people have said from the very beginning, well, how much would a new facility cost? Well, I guess that depends on what we're building. So, and then, okay, it was an interesting thing that he said, you start with all the bells and whistles and all the things, and then maybe you pare that down based on what you can afford. So I think that it's been surprising, sure, but I think that it's something that will just keep driving our conversations about what our wishes are moving forward.
It's definitely a concern, and I think it's something that, council as a whole will have to discuss going forward, where we want to see this. On a personal level, it's a concern, but I can't speak to council as a whole on that. But it is a large number for sure.
So we came back, and we had another round of engagement. It was very well attended. People were excited to see the design, and we had 3 open houses and an online option. 312 people responded to the open houses, and there were 300 responses to the online survey. The most liked about the facility was the walking track, and it was accessible for everyone. And then what was missing, they had a lot of comments about having no pool, and they thought that the outdoor space should be more developed, which was out of our scope, but definitely you would want to look at developing the outdoor spaces and incorporating a variety of basketball courts, et cetera, if you went forward with this. The overall concerns that were highlighted were the cost of the building and the tax impacts that would be felt by the people. They wanted to make sure that the concession or canteen had healthy eating, and we were hoping that it could be possibly used by the community. And then that's basically where a quick summary of what we did, and this study will be available it's a lot longer. I think it's 150 pages rather than the 29 I just showed you.
Okay. Thank you. And the full report is actually already on our meeting package, but we're going to speak to it being an adopted report so that it can just be more easily found on the website. But I want to thank you for that presentation. I do want to remind folks, or just let folks know, that we had a little bit longer version of this where the presenter, along with a couple of other folks who were able to speak in more detail about costs and energy and that kind of thing. That meeting is available on our website. So if you're watching this and you want to go to the same place that you found this meeting, you can find that one, which is just a little more detail.
One of the things I was wondering about, just I know we had talked earlier about, possibly the cost differencing on whether it be just an arena and a walking track, but there were some other notes in there about seating style. When the seating style is more geared to one side, they just had notes saying it can significantly impact the cost, but I didn't know by how much, or not looking for an exact number, but what do you find that, how do you find that impacts it rather than having seating all 4 sides?
Well, okay. So you're going to have more challenges having a walking track if you're going to have seating only on the one side, because you need if you want to have a walking track that goes all the way around, you need the area for that walking track to function on the opposing side of the ice. So I think if a walking track is important to the facility, there is positives to having the seating on the other side. If you do get rid of that seating, then your steel length is shorter, so you're just going to spend a lot less on the overall amount of steel that's there. And then I guess likely if you're going to go up to 1,000 seats, however, you probably want to do both sides.
Quick follow-up, would the would the walking track, would that kind of a thing be possible? Because like, say you might have, I'm thinking of the existing arena now where the benches are on the opposite side. You may have some space to have some kind of a cantilevered walking track above there still without, okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, you could probably do it.
No, thank you for that. That's an
Typically,
interesting-
when you do see a walking track that goes around an ice surface, you typically have seating on both sides.
Chris, you were involved in writing this, were you?
Yeah.
One thing that struck me is your comment, the County of Richmond's current arena is at end of life, and you stated that a couple of times. I don't know if you're referring to the 2019 study, because you spoke of that as well. That speaks of the building and this FCI issue. What's your thoughts on that FCI, on the number that they put there?
I think it's low now because it was done quite a long time ago, that assessment. I think costs have gone up considerably since that assessment.
So you're saying the 60% is low?
I think.
So you're saying you think it's over $20 million to repair this building?
Your building now?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it'll cost $20 million. Well, I don't know. To replace the build, I don't think it'll cost. It's hard for me to know. We'd have to do that again. We'd have to get that updated, that report.
So where do you come up with the building is at end of life?
The report basically says that a variety of your systems need to be replaced.
Okay, and you do reference that in your document, and you state them as needing immediate replacement, and you list a whole slew of items.
Yeah, that's just directly from the report that I reviewed.
Okay.
And then most of those had a date associated with when the replacement was necessary.
And some was many, many years. But these are immediates as per the document that was done in 2019.
Yeah.
I don't believe in speaking to our public works that any of these things have been done yet.
I think some have.
And we have been running this building since 2019.
Right.
So if these are immediates as of 2019, one has been there. I was on the board when it was a volunteer board. Mm-hmm. And this in-slab piping needing immediate replacement, that's been an issue for eons. There's been issues, and maybe our public works director, they've been doing repairs. I mean, that's something to me that needs to be done, Mm-hmm. And in light of, our warden has stated that we don't want this building to go, to just collapse on us. I think that's something that needs to be done as quick as possible.
Yeah, I think that's beyond the scope of what our presenter can speak to. Yeah.
It is. But you are listing that these are immediates. You are listing that the building is at end of life, and I disagree with that it's at end of life.
Do you agree with District 3 Councillor Brian Marchand that the current arena, is not at the end of its life? And if you agree with him, how far do you think it is from the end of its life?
I guess I don't agree with Councillor Marchand. I believe that we need to be super mindful about spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars on one part of the arena that is at a very, that is 50 years old, knowing that another part of the arena is also 50 years old. And I'm concerned about places in Bedeck, the facility in Bedeck, where they fixed one thing because they didn't want to invest in a new facility. And then they fixed another thing and they didn't want to invest. And then the third thing they just couldn't fix. And so there was money spent ultimately, we have a 50-year-old facility. I think what Councillor Marchand is very mindful of is that if we are going to take a methodical approach to reviewing how we get to a new facility, if we do at all, how do we keep the arena opened? And I absolutely agree with that, which is why I voted for the motion to investigate all our options around that. But taxpayers have said they are concerned about what this is going to cost. So I am going to stumble and struggle if somebody tells me we have to spend $1 million, $2 million, whatever, 100,000, 500, whatever here, knowing that we have a 50-year-old this, and this. So those conversations, it's not a simple, none of these conversations are simple, but it's important that we have them. So it's important that you have people who are looking at this from a different perspective. Councillor Mumberket's question about, relationship with amenities, that's an important conversation to bring to the table. Councillor Marchand's argument that we are not at the end of our lifespan in this facility and we need to investigate the fixes and not look at anything, that's an important part. Because each of those people with those opinions represent a group of people sitting around the coffee clubs. So it's important we have these conversations, but they're not easy.
What are we looking at? Another 5 years? Is that thereabouts, about approximately?
I think currently we are all mindful of the fact that we are looking at current residents in Richmond County being on the hook for paying for all this. We do know that we have businesses, companies, multinational corporations that are eyeing work in the Strait. And what does that mean for potential revenue that we haven't even been considering? That would mean, not just the residents kind of bearing that. So those conversations are probably 2 and 3, we're probably going to see that money come in not tomorrow. What we saw in Bedeck is, no, we don't want to talk about it, we're going to fix. No, we don't want to talk about it, we're going to fix. And now in June of 2024, when they just had to close the facility, they're looking at 18 months. I think their time frame is 2 years. So I think, you'd be looking at least 18 months, but it could be as much as 3 years if we gave ourselves a year and a half to continue this conversation even, right? So yeah, we've got a fingers crossed the arena stays open, right?
One more comment is, I noticed that you spoke of a bunch of halls and things like that. There's a hall in my community. There's 2 of them there. There's the Lions Hall and the Parish Hall, and we use the Parish Hall for walking. I didn't see anything in this document about that. So maybe it wasn't brought to your attention, but
I'd have to go back and see if I went to the Parish Hall. I'm not sure if I did or not.
I didn't see it listed, and they do walk. It's open in the winter between 10 and 2 for people to go walking. So thank you.
Great, thank you. So 5, 4, 3, 2, that's me. So can you, I just want to be clear on, because I wasn't part of last council, essentially, does this end your relationship with the municipality in terms of the work that you were hired to do? Is this sort of brings that to a close, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
So I'm curious as to whether are there any changes in this report that you submitted to us for tonight that stemmed from the conversations you had in the last 3 meetings, so scratch eats, and so that's information for us to take as we move forward in the process. So again, the reason just an example, I remember there was a conversation about solar. So that's not reflected. So we should be mindful of the fact that the consultations that took place at Scratch Eats, at the Loosedale Arena, at the Eatery in St. Peter's, and online, that's information essentially for us. You didn't make any changes to the, okay, yeah,
No, I didn't make any.
Yep, no, it's just as we move forward with ongoing discussions and considerations, just so that we're mindful that that is more information that may not have been reflected in your report, but that would be left to us.
Yeah, and if the next consultants you hire, they can take that information and build this. The idea is to just keep building this until you actually build the project. So And if it is if the next thing is building something like this or building this, you can take that information and use it.
Now, the consultant alluded to something. He said the possibility of hiring more consultants. Is that?
Well, I think anytime you do work that is not something that we as counselors or we as regular old staff can do. So, for example, we have an engineer who is our director of operations. He is a civil engineer. We would never, and he is highly qualified because he was, his council wanted that to be so around every issue around water and sewer and septic. So we don't need to have any consultants on those kinds of matters. But I would think if we said, look, we would like to, these are the renderings we got, but we would like to maybe not do anything except an arena, and can you find a way to put a walking track in there that's cheap? Like if we started to have those conversations, that's more than current staff would do. So, you know, you'd be looking at an architect or a construction company who could do that. I think that all falls under the umbrella situation. So anytime you need anything stamped or certified, I personally don't think we need consultants to talk to our own people. There are ways that we can have conversations with our own people about what our wishes are, and we have a highly skilled finance staff. So we can say, look, what does this mean? What does 1 cent mean on taxes? What if Everwind come? All of those things. So we have that resource available to us. But anything that you would need stamped or whatever, I think that falls under the umbrella of consultants. District 1.
Thank you, Warden. So I brought this up earlier, Chris. Thanks for all your work on this, but I brought this up earlier. On page 21, it states space for youth programming, right? So encourage youth programming, right? But when I look at the survey that was done online, we're looking at over 400 people that took the survey, and when you look at the breakdown of ages, 40 to 64 was 53%. 28 to 39 was 25%, so that's a total of 78%. 65 and over was 21%. And what really sticks out to me is that 19 and under was only 1%. So for me, like, it's saying we should encourage youth programming, but there's only 1% of the population that was youth that took the survey, right? So, looking into the future, for us as well, my take on the whole situation when it comes to engagement is that, if they're not going to come to you, then maybe we go to them, right? So, going to elementary schools, going to high schools, and having these kind of seminars in front of 200 students, right? And let them see what they say and, what their take is on a situation like this, right? So, yeah. Food for thought, I guess, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think there would be definite benefits to doing that.
Yeah.
You shared the concerns with District 1 Councillor Sean Sampson about the lack of youth input that took place in the consultation period.
Yeah, and I think when you leave it to youth to get involved, and listen, we can advertise on Facebook and in our Reflections newsletters, but that's not how kids are communicating with us and with each other at this point. So yeah, I think that I am super concerned, and I'll just a little story about that. When my first job out of university was in Amherst, I was the school psychologist for the Cumberland District School Board. And I was living in Amherst. I had no connections to the community there, so I found a recreation flyer, and there was a volleyball, adult volleyball. There was a YMCA that was built in a section of Amherst that was designed to help youth and basically get them, stop them from kind of congregating at the mall and on the streets. They literally tore it down a few years later because nobody went in it. No young people went in it. If you don't talk to youth about what they want, then you may as well be just throwing darts at a dartboard. So engaging youth is absolutely essential. And I think Councillor Sampson's point, I had a list of questions and he got to it before I did, but his point is you can't expect kids to come to you. You have to go to them. And I think that's true of a lot of groups, our seniors, our other, minority populations, diverse populations. So yeah, I think that was a really good point on his part.
We speak of open office concepts, so people, looking for a different environment, just get out of the house more or less and go and just, do their work in a different atmosphere, different environment. Is that the norm that you see, or would something like long-term rentals for revenue, income, long-term revenue, would that be an option? Like, you're looking at maybe local employees that work for a law firm or an accounting firm or whatever that would rent these spaces year-round, and it would become, revenue all year long, right?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how you guys want to move forward with that. I'm not sure what the metrics are as far as people working from home in this area. I know in Halifax, I have a significant amount of friends that work basically from home, and they actually rent an office space, and basically it's just an open office where people go and work, and you pay a certain amount a month to do that. And that might be a nice option for you guys, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess you'd have to look at if it's been a success. If you've done this before in the community, and if it's been successful, then and you've had a permanent office rental space work, then maybe that would be a good idea here. But it is an option to generate revenue there for sure.
Great, thank you. I want to say thank you very much for your time with us and for the work that you've put into this project. Certainly, we're, as a council, as a municipality, as a council, we're nowhere near the end of any conversations about what could or could not be and what might cost and all of that. But this is a really good opportunity for us to start those conversations. And it is interesting to me. I did have somebody who, was like, I can't wait to go to that those presentations, and it was like, add more, and why not a pool, and add this and add that. And then the number came out. And it was good of you to put the 43 million in big print, because then he called me and nearly had like a heart attack. No, we can't do anything. So those are, it's just important information for us to ground our conversation. So thank you for your work on that. I will ask for council, looking for a motion to adopt, to accept the multi-use facility feasibility study, because we want to be able to basically take ownership of it and put it on our website so that it's something we can refer to. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the report so that it sort of belongs to us and has a place in our...
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make two of them, but I'll make a motion that we accept. So we are talking the larger document. We're accepting the larger document.
Yeah, so the one that is currently available, it's on our website now, it's pages 34 to 232, but I'd like to see it moved to the documents section of our website and not just embedded in this meeting. So it's been moved by Councillor Marchand that we adopt the multi-use facility feasibility study as presented. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Great. So we have a motion on the floor to recommend to council. I'm sorry, it should be recommend to council to accept the multi-use facility feasibility study as presented. Any question on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries.
I'd like to make another motion in light of these documents that we ask staff. There is some money for rehabilitating arenas that we ask staff to maybe put an application in for that money. And the work that I think we need to do is this underfloor piping. And those jobs need to get done in the summer. So when the arena is done this year, look for money to get that done. A new facility is a long time away. And if we're having issues with the refrigeration system and the underfloor piping, I think we need to seek out some money, put an application in as quick as possible, try to get that work done so that this facility doesn't end up, anything happening with that system can put the arena down. Not saying a new system wouldn't fail, but I'd like to make a motion that we ask staff to, or we recommend to council that we ask staff that to get an application in as quick as possible to get the underfloor piping system, concrete, and refrigeration system looked at.
So there's a motion on that. There's been a motion put forward. So we have a couple paths. We can have a seconder just for conversation. We can have a seconder who's absolutely committed to that question, or that sort of dies here. So I'm not able to second. So I'll throw it out.
I'll second that, and then whoever wants to start the conversation. But I had a couple of questions in regard to that.
Want to make sure that I've read it properly. So we are recommending to council that staff put an application in for in-floor.
No, we'll apply. I think there's some money through efficiency and some through the rehabilitation for arenas or something. So I think we need to get something together because.
You had very specifically mentioned some things.
Oh yeah, the work to be done specifically is mainly the underfloor, I guess, the under ice surface refrigeration system. I think, our public works director could probably speak more to that, but that's, I think, the work that, according to these documents, is pretty important to be done.
To get us started, this is a recommendation to council to direct staff to put in an application, put in any necessary applications, specifically around under ice surface and piping. Okay, so that's what the motion is, and it's been seconded. So substitute for clerk, Danielle, you have that? Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. So now we're opening that up for debate.
So, and my concern, I'm very much in favor of investigating this type of thing, but I just kind of feel like the way it's worded, we're applying almost like as if we're just going forward without knowing what these costs are either. Like, I'd just rather get your intent on this.
I guess the worry I have, and deadlines can be altered, I guess, and speaking to our MLA, the deadlines for some of these grants are coming up within the weeks. So, the fiscal year is ending, but it can be extended. It's just, I think this work needs to be done between April and September, so the sooner the better. I mean, if it's not this summer or this 25, then it has to be 26. But I think we need to move on this because this has been an issue for many years.
I have some concerns, and here are my concerns. We have a building that has multiple issues identified in a report dated 2019. The 2019 report lists several things, not just this. So I'm concerned about the money that we might put out for one thing without acknowledging that there are other things that may happen to the arena in terms of challenges. And I'm thinking about Bedeck. So fixed something else went, and that was kind of the final straw, and they ended up closing after having spent money. I'm also concerned about doing work that might actually pull a building permit. So I'm specifically concerned about the part in the report that, like, the report says, a detailed evaluation of the property development's compliance with national and provincial building codes and our fire codes is not part of the scope of the assessment, with the exception of the structural assessment. So I am concerned that work that we do that is sizable in scope may very well require the pull of a building permit that therefore requires the whole building to go up to see. So I'm urging caution about A, spending money on one thing when there are multiple things that may have to be done, and B, unintended fixes we may have to make to bring the building up to code. So this is not exactly the same example, but I did renovations I put a basement under my house and I renovated the first floor. I pulled the building permit and they told me I had to put new windows upstairs. I hadn't done any work upstairs. So I am very concerned about the fact that we have not had an assessment of any areas where we are short, where we fall short around national building codes, provincial codes, and in particular, fire marshal regulations. So I am urging caution around that quick move forward in a matter of a couple of weeks and months. And maybe I'll ask the CAO to comment.
And Madam Chair, any of those grant applications are going to require matching funding or things like that, and this would be unbudgeted at this point in time. There are no funds allocated for this in our current budget. Doesn't mean you guys can't make motions, but this is an unbudgeted item that we are discussing right now. So another reason to investigate as opposed to push forward at this point.
Yeah, so I mean, I would tend to agree with Councillor Marchand, but I also agree with you, CEO, that we should maybe investigate before we go too far here. But I think I understand Mr. Councillor Marchand's concerns here that over the last couple of years we've had some delayed openings, and I think it has to do with this refrigeration problem. And, you know, we've all said, Madam Warden, that we don't want to see Richmond County without an arena. So, you know, there's a fear there that, you know, this multi-use facility is, you know, we just spent 2 years with the consulting firm, so this is going to be a long process, right? So this building might be 4 or 5 years away. Are we going to keep going down this road for the next 4 or 5 years with this problem? And maybe one day we end up with no arena? You know, that's maybe a road we don't want to go down, right? So investigate, yeah, you know, should we act aggressively? Probably not, but I would investigate that situation and see, you know, if there is repairs that can be made to make sure that our current facility is maintained and lasts the 4 or 5 years that it's going to take to build a new one. I would go down that road for sure.
What I'm hearing is not reflected in the motion that's currently on the floor. So I'm wondering if there is an appetite to amend the motion or vote on this one, or and move forward with a different one, or what are the wishes? Because what we're talking about here, investigate, is not consistent with the motion on the floor. Councillor Marchand?
Number one, to the budgeting issue, this would be after April the 1st. We would be budgeting in the future. Number two, I'm concerned if there are fire marshal issues with this building, we need to address those as well. If you are worried that there are issues with this building, because I thought it gets addressed or for this fire rating or the amount of people you can put, I thought those were annual inspections that were done. So if there's an issue you think that is going to be brought up because of if we have to bring get a building permit because we're doing repairs here, I think we need to address that as well. So if you're concerned, that would not stop me from voting for this, for sure.
Yeah, I am concerned about all of the things, including the roof, including all of the things. Right. And so I'm not suggesting we do nothing. I am suggesting we be cautious around the timeline that your motion on the floor here speaks to. So I'm happy to put this to a vote and then entertain an additional motion, or like if nobody's bringing forth an amendment, then that's what happens next. We vote.
I'm just thinking in theory we could bring out a whole new motion if this is defeated anyway that maybe better reflects the intent of council. I mean, depending on the result of the vote, I guess.
Yes, we are required to vote on something. Either we're voting on an amendment or we're voting on this, but there's no amendment on the floor. And once we vote on this, if it doesn't pass or if it does, we can make other motions. So I'll call for any further debate or amendments and if hearing, and I'll call for that amongst the councillors who are here.
I just think it's something we need to look at. However we do it, we need to get moving on this because this new building is years away. And you made comments that you're worried about this one failing. We spoke of the deck. I know in Antigonish, the town, I believe, they did repairs and to their underfloor piping, and maybe I believe you know some people there, but we could find out what they did, what their costs were. But I think we need to get to this. If, as Councillor Sampson says, there's delayed openings, refrigeration related. I know we've bought some Freon because of our system being an old system, so we need to get on this, regardless of building a new one or not. I think we need to get on this.
So the motion on the floor versus what I'm hearing around is make the application versus investigate. So the current motion on the floor is for staff to make applications. So I'm going to call for a vote on that motion and then open the floor should there be another motion someone would like to make that reflects the investigation of such, unless I hear different.
I'm just kind of thinking of this, and I mean, should we, hopefully there's time with these grants, but we do need to move quick. So unless I make an amendment and just put the word investigate before the application. So I'll move an amendment just that we have staff investigate and apply, as soon as possible. Because I guess even for the application, they're going to have to do some kind of work.
We have a motion on the floor, which was to actually apply, tell staff to apply. But there has been an amendment that is to investigate that.
To add the word investigate before apply.
Okay.
So we're going to investigate it. They'll come back with a report, and we can decide at that point to apply, but we'll add the word investigate in there.
I guess I want to make sure that it doesn't say investigate and apply. It's investigate for council, right? Yeah, there's no application until after we would say so.
Investigate and report back to council as soon as possible. It's not
To see if an application
Hopefully,
is
yeah.
loaded.
100%. There may be things within the application that are just not feasible at this time, for
Yep.
whatever reason.
Yeah, we need to look at this as quick as possible. So
there's a motion on the
floor, and now
is a motion to amend, which is investigate, report back to staff about applications for.
not so much investigate what applications, I guess. Investigate costs related to, because the application anyway would only happen after our regular council, and I think we'll be beyond the deadline. So I think we're going to need some information about the cost of this with the intention of applying for funds, because I think we should have this work done in the summer if it's possible.
The amendment is to investigate and report back to staff report back to council around necessary work at the arena and funding sources.
For our regular council.
Is that possible? So, as
So
soon as,
normally we don't act on things from, sorry.
yeah,
Madam
no,
Chair,
I get what you're saying.
Until the council meeting, right?
I understand that.
But we can start pulling things together.
At our council meeting, we will hear the committee of the whole report, which will then be accepted by council, which will then direct staff to do this. But having said that, we know that they're going to start making phone calls and doing the searches now.
And that would be good. So
Yes, okay.
we'll leave the word investigate. We'll take out the application. So they're going to investigate the cost of this. Sorry, Danielle, that's the amendment. Remove, apply, and add investigate.
We have a motion to amend, and you've basically heard that. Can we have a seconder on the motion to amend?
I'll second that.
Those in favor of the amendment to the motion, which is all about investigation, please all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion carries. So now we are back to the motion, which is now amended to say investigate. Is there any other discussion on that?
And I want to be clear, this is to do with the in-floor piping for the ice surface and the refrigeration units.
And the concrete, because whatever.
Or the concrete, oh yeah, yeah, all that work.
Part was in your original motion.
was.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on the motion that has now been amended? None. All those in favor of the motion on the floor that has been amended, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Look at us.
Thank you for watching Strait Talk. Please tune in again to find out what we will be talking about.